Hello, my name is Mwirigi and I am going to be taking you through market structures. So we are going to start the lesson by stating the learning objectives, and the learning objectives here, by the end of this lesson, I expect everybody that has listened to define the term market, to state what a perfect competition is, what imperfect competition is, and the examples, which are monopoly situation, an oligopoly, and a monopolistic situation. So let's begin by defining what is a market. And a market is defined as a place or point at which buyers and sellers negotiate the exchange of well-defined products or services. A market is a place where buyers and sellers meet. Goods and services are offered for the sale and transfer of ownership also occurs. So a market is a place where goods and services are exchanged and where buyers and sellers meet, and also negotiations about the prices are made. So a market is also defined by Mr. Benham as an area over which buyers and sellers are in close touch with one another, either directly or through dealers, that the price obtainable in one part of the market affects the prices paid in other parts. So according to Benham, a market in one place can affect another market elsewhere. So by thus far, we are able to see that a market has certain components, and these components are the sellers. There must be a seller for there to be a market, to exist a market. There must be a seller. There must be a buyer. There must be a product as well, and this product brings about conditions of entry and exit, like the quality and so on. The negotiation also occurs in a market, and this is basically setting of the price. So if the price is not fixed, then buyers can negotiate with the sellers on the price that they can obtain a certain product or service. Another thing that occurs in a market is transfer of ownership. So a seller sells a product. A product at the beginning belonged to the seller, but now it changes ownership to the buyer. And there is also the transfer of money. In this case, the buyer gives the seller the money. So those are the components of markets. So let's discuss a competitive based structure. And there are two types of competition. And the first is perfect competition markets, and we will see its characteristics. And there is also imperfect market, and we will also see the examples and their characteristics. So markets are divided into two, the perfect and the imperfect, and we can see the imperfect are three types. There is a monopoly, an oligopoly, and the monopolistic competition. So what is perfect competition? Normally, people assume normally a perfect market can only be theoretical. Therefore, a perfect market does not really exist, but a market structure in which all firms in an industry are price takers and in which there is freedom of entry into and exit from the industry can be called a perfect competition. Features of perfect competition include in perfect competition markets, a large number of buyers and sellers exist. There is also the price taker, which is the market price. The goods sold in the perfect competition market are also homogeneous products. The firms are free to entry or exit. No industry preferences or buyers and sellers. Each buyer and seller operates under the conditions of certainty. Mobility of factors of production also is a feature of perfect competition market. Also, other features of perfect competition market include perfect knowledge, and this is knowledge of the price, knowledge of the competitors, and so on. A firm is also a price taker in a perfect competition market, and also it is assumed there is no government interference. So this is a completely free competition market, and there is also assumed that there is a perfectly elastic curve in a perfect competition market. Also, the revenue curve under perfect market is perfect, and there is producer equilibrium. Let's also talk about imperfect competition. And in this type of competition, there are three or four. There is the monopoly, the monopolistic, an oligopoly, and a duopoly. So, what is a monopoly? A pure monopoly exists if one and only one firm produces and sells a particular commodity in the market. The single firm producing the product is itself both the firm and the industry. And this an example of this is the railways. So or KPLC, which sells electricity. So in a perfect in a monopoly, there is only one seller, but there is only one seller who sells a particular commodity into the market. What are the features of a monopoly? And the features of a monopoly are, in a monopoly, there are large numbers of buyers, there is only one seller, there is price discrimination, there are full restrictions. There is also assumed that there is no knowledge. So the imperfect knowledge feature is also in a monopoly. Also, in a monopoly, the seller sets the price. So the demand curve is less elastic as well, because there is only one seller. Therefore, they only take the price whether they like it or they do not. Therefore, there is also a producer equilibrium. So what causes a monopoly? And a monopoly basically is caused by features such as patent rights given by the legal, like the government. Also, policies such as granting ownership and control of some strategic raw materials as well can bring about a monopoly, or exclusive knowledge of technology as well can bring a monopoly. Size of the market may accommodate only one single firm as well. And another cause of monopoly is limit pricing policy adopted to prevent new entrants. And this is, of course, by the government. Another type of an imperfect competition is monopolistic, and monopolistic competition is a market situation in which there are large number of buyers and sellers which buys and sellers differentiated goods. So monopolistic competition refers to a situation where there are many sellers of a differentiated product. There is competition which is not perfect, and many firms making very similar products, so which are close but not perfect substitutes. Monopolistic market exhibits characteristics of both perfect competition and monopoly. So a monopolistic competition is a mixture. It has both characteristics. There are many buyers and sellers, and there are many buyers and there are also many sellers. And the products sold in a monopolistic competition, as we have seen, are not perfect substitutes. So let's look at features of monopolistic competition. And the features of monopolistic competition, as I have said, there are large numbers of buyers, there are large numbers of sellers as well. The product is differentiated. There is imperfect knowledge from the buyer's side. There is also a higher selling cost because of promotions. Few restrictions also are in place, and there is freedom of entry and exit, which brings about the large numbers. And the demand curve in this situation is sensitive to the market because there are many sellers, and also revenue curve and monopolistic competition, and there is also producer equilibrium. So let's look at oligopoly. And in an oligopoly, we say this is a market which has large number of buyer but only few sellers of the products. And if there is a competition among a few sellers, oligopoly is said to exist. And an oligopoly is an example of like the situation of Pepsi and Coca-Cola, or Android, which is maybe Samsung, Xiaomi, and Techno and other phones, and maybe the Apple. So the features of an oligopoly is there are few sellers, and there is also collision, there is lack of uniformity, and there exist barriers of entry and exit, and there is also some price rigidity, and there is also complicated market structures. So those are the three types of imperfect market, imperfect competition markets, and that brings us to the end. And maybe as part of an assignment, we can go and look at what we mean by price discrimination. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for lending me your ears.